Hey guys, thanks for checking out the channel. Tobin here with you. Appreciate everybody tuning on in. Just got done watching the Marlins season come to an end here on a Wednesday night. So shout out to the Fish. It was a marvelous season from them. And, hopefully it is a sign of big things to come. I think that they really had a nice year as far as a lot of adversity they had to deal with. Honestly, I feel like if a lot of things kind of broke their way, luckily, I know that they had a lot of comeback wins, and people might scoff and say, they had a bad run differential, but I also feel like they dealt with a lot of adversity. So good luck to them, man. I hope that they are able to take this, and Kim Ang and their entire front office is able to use this as a jumping off point for them, because Lord knows they are playing a tough division with the Phillies and Braves. You know the Mets are going to come reloaded with a bunch of money. And I think we can relate to that, right? Let's swing this over to football, because Miami Dolphins in a divisional matchup just got humbled this past week, much to the delight of certain national media that apparently do the show with buffalo sauce all over their chin. I don't know what the hell this Kyle Brandt was talking about. I mean, I knew that he was in the bag for Buffalo, which is, it is a little bit annoying. You turn around everywhere nationally, right? On the NFL Network, ESPN, it literally, we've all dubbed the name Jet Up for what they got going on there. They cover the Jets and Zach Wilson nonstop. And, you're just sitting here and you're like, you knew that they were waiting to jump down the throats of the Miami Dolphins. Somebody was going to do it. And this guy's out here, he's like, I don't like fun. I don't like people telling me what the next best thing is. It's like, yes. Now let's go to another clip of Taylor Swift to Travis Kelce here on Good Morning Football, because Lord knows in the Good Morning of Football, that's all we're going to get. And by the way, I got no problem with T Swift and Kelce. I'm just saying it's a little bit funny that the guy can't be bothered with awesome Miami Dolphins offense, and yet, they'll be playing Kelce T Swift parodies nonstop. It's a delight. But it was interesting hearing a little bit from Mike McDaniel today, because he was asked about the idea of this game coming up against the New York Giants being a get-right game. And it's interesting because it's the first time the Dolphins have got to face a little bit of adversity. I am curious to see how they deal with it, because we know how weird last season was with the Miami Dolphins dealing with 2 long losing streaks after having 2 big winning streaks. And you would hope, obviously, this first one doesn't involve, deja vu with something crazy happening to Tua. So let's just say normal circumstances are going to happen in this football game. Can the Miami Dolphins just take care of business against a team they seem to be a lot better than? The New York Giants have been nothing short of a disaster this year after a pretty promising first year under Brian Daboll and, giving the money to Daniel Jones, obviously having the controversy that they did with Saquon Barkley. The Dolphins reportedly at one point checking in with them about Saquon Barkley. So can the Miami Dolphins do to New York what they did similarly to Denver, where Denver was not playing well, they were reeling, and you just felt like overall the Dolphins had the better team? And the things that are obviously going to stand out to this team are the New York Giants on Monday Night Football giving up 11 sacks and getting their quarterback absolutely killed. Seattle just absolutely running roughshod, and Seattle's off to a great start too. They're 3-1, and it's a big-time road victory for them to go into prime time. They got a monster pick 6 on Daniel Jones. You have Daboll throwing the keyboard or the tablet in Daniel Jones's direction. So they also, much like Denver did, seems like a team that's in disarray. And yeah, I can understand why the media is dubbing this a quote-unquote get-right game, but Mike McDaniel really hated this thing being brought up to him today at his Wednesday press conference.
A get-right game doesn't make any sense to me, and I don't think anybody in our locker room is looking at it like that. It is hard enough to get your game to its best, and when you've left some stuff to be desired, as I know our locker room feels, the thing you want to do is be focused on yourself and how it applies to the opponent every single week. And even if you approach something as a get-right game and you're fortunate, like you set yourself up to lose for one, but let's say you're fortunate enough to win. you have now lost your competitive momentum and in your process of progressing throughout the season, that even though you may have squeaked out a win, the residuals you will pay for.
So Mike McDaniel hates this idea. It's very, very similar. I thought his attitude of it was almost towards like a college coach. College coaches hate this. Mario Cristobal earlier in the year did this with Bethune-Cookman, where he was like, I'm not going to disrespect football by even answering a question about, will we try and get as much work for people as possible. Football coaches hate this. Even Mike McDaniel, who's as zany and jolly as they come as a coach, doesn't like the idea. It's almost a disrespect to the game to look at the Giants like that. And I will say, look, you look at that as a Miami Dolphins team and you see what they have, and you've noticed how the Dolphins have struggled defensively. You're hoping these next couple of games are get-right games. But I understand the coach absolutely hating that label, because we do see, like, all week, we see teams, the Cowboys a couple of weeks ago losing to the Arizona Cardinals. This past week, the Texans absolutely thumping the Steelers. Buccaneers going on the road and hammering the Saints. And these are all things you could probably look and say those are get-right games. The Colts this year beating the Ravens. People probably thought, that's a get-right game. Bengals maybe thinking they were going to go into Tennessee. That's a get-right game. It is the NFL. It is a cliche. On any given Sunday, anybody could win. But I do think that for a young coach who has a team that is coming off a beatdown, I think you understand why he wants to avoid the idea of, we can steamroll anybody. Even though this isn't the Buffalo Bills, I think the Miami Dolphins are facing. Look, the signs are that maybe Saquon Barkley is going to play this week. He had his first limited practice since his ankle injury in week 2. If Saquon's on the mend, dude, hey, this is going to be a hell of a test for this Dolphins team, which has been really piss poor on all defense, but specifically it feels like the tone is set on that run defense. Curious to see what Vic Fangio has to say about all this tomorrow. I don't imagine he's going to be a guy who runs from the accountability of the team. But yeah, Mike McDaniel did not like that. And Tua had some interesting comments. I don't know if you guys remember this, but Tua, after the game, had said that, the Miami Dolphins, let me see if I get the exact quote here. But it was in relation to the Dolphins being humbled from their loss to the Buffalo Bills. And here it was. He said, this league, and this is how it works, it's very good because I would say it's also very humbling for a lot of people to be able to have the highest high and then you lose in a manner like this. It's very humbling. For some, it's much needed. Which I felt was an interesting quote from Tua, because who's not being humble in the Miami Dolphins locker room, right? Like, Tua has handled this with has very much echoed and parroted what his coach had said, where it's like, 3-0 wasn't very impressive, not our goal, not what we're ultimately going for. So I don't know what he's referring to, but he was asked about this today. He said, somebody asked him, he said, after the last game, you seemed like you were sending a message with the humbling experience that you said was needed for some. Just wondering what you were seeing in guys and how you think they responded. He said, you can see being in the locker room, some guys take things with a grain of salt and some don't. Sometimes something like that is well needed. Sometimes things like that are needed in losses, especially the way that we lost, to get our guys close together, to get guys doing things maybe they've never done or maybe they never had to do. But I do know one thing, that some guys are being asked to do more than others, and I think that it's a good challenge for some that are willing to take up that challenge and hopefully do something with it on Sunday. Interesting stuff from Tua. And I wonder who he's referring to. It feels almost like it's a message for the defense. Because Tua's been obviously really behind the offensive line. I don't feel like Liam Eichenberg needed to be humbled. I feel like he's been humbled enough. Don't think it's his message to his wide receivers. The only guy I can maybe think of is like he doesn't think Waddle's doing enough. I mean, maybe that's the only guy I can think of. Devon Achane, I mean, Tua was given like so much praise to Devon Achane. Achane, excuse me. I'm going to try and get that right. Give us, again, give me some grace. It's been a week. Devon Achane, I don't think it's him. I don't believe Raheem Mostert seems like the biggest team guy ever. I doubt Durham Smythe. So if I were to guess if it was anybody on offense, maybe Jalen Waddle, maybe. But it feels like more to me when I hear things like that of guys are doing things they've never done. I feel like that's probably looking towards the defense. Just guessing. I don't know. But it was an interesting thing from Tua as to what he was, what was he talking about from that. But Tua does Tua is walking around with a lot more cachet. That is for sure. He was even talking about this today where he was talking about how he is able to lead different where he really wasn't basically under Brian Flores.
I definitely have become more vocal. I think when I came into the league during COVID, it was a little hard for me to find myself leading the way I wanted to lead because of the hierarchy with how I was told I should have led. It just wasn't the way I felt comfortable with, and so I didn't lead that in that sense. I continued to lead the way I felt was necessary in being the true character to myself. And so, having Mike and the new coaching staff come in has definitely helped allow me to be myself. And with me being able to be myself, that's just how it became to be. More vocal, feeling comfortable talking to guys certain ways, and it's also how you approach guys in this league. Some people respond better when you yell at them. Some respond better if you just pull them to the side and have a man-to-man conversation. And there's just different ways that you go about that. And I would say that's sort of my leadership.
And I think we've all seen the growth from this guy, even just in the way that he carries himself. So if he felt like a message did need to be sent after that butt kicking that they took from Buffalo, then because I think we could all acknowledge that the Dolphins were a 3-0, but they were a 3-0 that definitely had some stuff that get cleaned up. It's hard to feel that way after you beat a team by a margin of 50 points. So hopefully this is whatever he feels like was fixed, and I think he gave some voice to this today, that whatever they did see that needed to be fixed gets fixed for this matchup against the Giants, because you could call it a get right, you could call it a slump buster, you could call it a trap game, you could call it an overlook game, whatever. The Dolphins need to take care of business, and we need to see some things fundamentally that are better, healthy or not, because it feels like there is a talent gap here. They do have a massive defensive front for sure, which was a problem you had last week. Hopefully you're going to get Connor Williams back. Hopefully you're going to get Jalen Phillips back, and that's going to definitely help some things. But, it is I think it definitely was a point where after what happened on Sunday, the Dolphins definitely needed a gut check and a reset, and I think the quarterback seems to agree.